Okay, good morning or good afternoon, depending on what hour you're watching this video. Students from ninth grade, this topic is the one that you're going to work in science today, genetics. Okay, what is this? Genetics. What is this? Well, the word genetics comes from the word gene. And basically, if I want to use easy words to explain what is genetics, I will say that are all the characteristics that pass from parents to offspring. Those are the words that you are going to use a lot in this unit: parents and offspring. Basically, we would say that parents are the one that get together to create a new creature, like mom and dad, and they create a baby. That baby is the offspring. That's the vocabulary that we use in genetics. Parents are the ones that will give 50% and 50% of the genetic characteristics, or in easy words, physical characteristics. Not only the physical characteristics, even the internal characteristics like behavior, predisposition to diseases, and many other things. Offsprings are the babies, right? The sons and daughters. Okay, so now we are going to study how these characteristics can be variated from one generation to another generation. That's another word that we are going to study a lot. Generation one, it's like the first generation that is going to mix together to create a baby. The generation two are the babies of that generation. But I'm going to explain that better in the next page. Let's speak first about what is genetics. As you can see, genetics here. Genetics is the science in charge of studying the physical and internal variations that are passed from parents to offspring. This science appeared first in the hands of Mr. Johann Gregor Mendel. Johann Gregor Mendel was a monk that, well, specifically from Austria, that he made studies with beans, something that we call peas, to be more specific. En español le llamamos chícharos. Okay, he made studies with these plants because he discovered that for some reason, when he had beans or peas from one different kind mixed with others of different kinds, the product or the peas were different from one generation to another. For example, he was trying to mix the green peas with the yellow ones. The yellow peas with the green peas to see if some variations can happen. And you know what? He discovered that yes, exactly. When you mix peas from one color with another color, the results sometimes will be 50% of one color and 50% of another color. Then he tried to mix tall plants with short plants to see what would happen in the case of tall plants mixed with short plants. If the other generation will produce 50% of short plants and 50% of tall plants. 50 and 50, you know? And he discovered that sometimes there are variations according other characteristics of the plants. So he started to make more experiments with flowers, green flowers, pink flowers, red flowers, white flowers, and what happened through the different generations. So that work is very important. Remember that Johann Gregor Mendel did a lot of experiments, but he wasn't a scientist. He was a monk. It's interesting to know that a monk applied the scientific method even without knowing about it. He presented his discoveries to the scientific people, and all the scientists didn't accept his theory. After a lot of years later, they accepted his theories, but he was dead. So terrible that they didn't pay attention in the first time that he spoke with them. Now, Johann Gregor Mendel, this monk, is considered as um, the father of genetics. Remember that, it's very important. Now let's speak about the DNA. What is the DNA? Good. Well, the DNA basically are the genetic materials that are inside each one of the cells. Um, Imagine that we have a cell. I'm going to draw it right now. Uh, an easy design. Okay, we have the cell here. Now, this is the nucleus in a transversal design. Now, inside the nucleus is the place where you're going to find the DNA. The DNA will be inside something called chromosomes. The chromosomes have this shape like kind of X. Now, if we make a zoom with a special microscope, we will see that the chromosomes have inside what we call DNA. And the DNA looks like this, approximately, right? Because I'm not a great drawer, but almost it looks like a double helix design. Something like this. And each one of the levels of this double helix design have different names, right? This is called guanine, this one adenine, cytosine, adenosine. The four amino acids that compound the DNA and pass the different characteristics from parents to offspring. Good. Now, let's focus more in what we really need to speak. All right, now we continue speaking about how to identify the genetic crossings. Well, I'm going to explain something called the Punnett square. Before starting to speak about the Punnett square, you must handle the following vocabulary. Remember that in the last activity I gave you a vocabulary and you had to search the definitions. I hope that you searched all the definitions because you are going to need those meanings to understand this topic. First, let's talk about the alleles. The alleles are the ones that have the physical characteristics of a determined organism. For example, in genetics, we are going to use letters to specify the characteristic of a determined species that we want to cross. Basically, what we are going to do is cross one species with another to see what we got. We are going to mix different characteristics to see what are the percentages or the probabilities of getting a new species. I'm going to make it easy with an example. What will happen if you cross a tall dog with a short dog? Which are the probabilities of getting short dogs or tall dogs or a mixture of both? That's what we're going to study. Okay, alleles are those characteristics. For example, we can speak about plants, tall plants and short plants. We are going to use the letter T. The tall plants, we use the capital T, and the short plants are going to use the lowercase t. La T mayúscula sería el gen dominante. The capital T is dominant. Dominant. And the lowercase t are recessive. Recessive. Great. Okay, now that we have the understanding that the capital letter is a dominant characteristic and the lowercase is recessive, la letra en mayúscula es dominante y la letra minúscula es recesiva. Okay? Okay. Now, let's speak about the combinations that we can have. If we have an animal that is tall or a plant that is tall, let's take a plant. Yes, yes, yes. For example, we can take a plant like a mango tree. If the mango tree, the genetic characteristic is tall, it's going to have a pair of capital T. That will mean tall. The dominant, always you have to write it first. The capital letters always will go first. Now, for example, the recessive characteristic, if a plant is short, will have lowercase t, tt. Okay, this will be short. And maybe you're asking, Mister, and what happens if you have mixed a capital and a lowercase? Can I write it like this? Capital, lowercase, like this? Nope, that is not correct. Always, when you are going to write it, you have to do it first, the capital and then the lowercase. So if you're going to have two characteristics, we'll go like this. Now, my question is, if you have two characteristics, one tall and one short, how is going to be the physical characteristic, the visible characteristic of the organism? Is going to be tall. Okay? Now, the only time that the recessive genes are visible is when both are at the same time. Okay? Okay, very good. So remember, when you have two capital letters, it will be tall. When you have two lowercase letters, it will be short. In the case that you are going to mix a lowercase and capital letter, always write the capital first and the lowercase in the second place. And the physical characteristic will be the dominant. Okay, remember that the capital letters are corresponding to dominant alleles or dominant genes. And the lowercase letter belongs to recessive characteristics. Dominant characteristic means that is the one that is stronger. Recessive characteristic is the one that is not visible, but it can be inside of the organism. En una explicación en español rápida, podemos decir de que el alelo dominante es aquel que domina más, que es más visible, que es más fuerte cuando pasa de padre a hijo. Y el recesivo es el más débil, que aunque no se vea, pero siempre está dentro de los genes de determinada persona. All right. O no solamente personas, puede ser animales también. O plantas. All right, let's continue with the explanation. Now, I'm going to move to show you an example of a Punnett diagram. Remember that you are going to need a little bit of math to understand it. It's important. Math is very important in the applying of genetics. Good. As I was saying to you, as I was explaining before, it's important to focus in the applying of mathematics to do the Punnett square. The Punnett square is something that it's very easy. It's going to help us a lot to find the probabilities of transferring a characteristic from parents to offspring. I'm going to use multiple colors so you can understand this better, right? I will make the Punnett square in blue, right? The Punnett square is very easy. The first thing is that you are going to make lines like this. Okay. Sorry, the line looks a little bit curved, but my software is going to fix it automatically. So you see, I did one vertical line, two vertical lines. I'm going to make another, and I need to add another vertical line like this, and the last one here, right? Look, that's good. Now I'm going to switch into a red color. No, I'm going to use blue. It's better. Now, if you are going to mix, for example, a plant that is tall, completely tall, dominant, completely tall, dominant, like this, you're going to mix a tall plant with a short plant, both are recessive. This is a new vocabulary that you have to learn. These are homozygote. Homozygote means that they have the same zygotes. Homozygote. Homozygote means that they have the same zygotes, that they are the same. Both are dominant. So we can call that these are dominant homozygotes. Dominant homozygotes. And this one is dominant, no, in this case is recessive homozygote because both are recessives, if you see. Okay, so we are going to mix two homozygotes with the difference that this one is dominant homozygote and this one is recessive homozygote. Just to see an example, what would happen if I have something like this? This one is not homozygote. This is heterozygote. Heterozygote means that the two zygotes or alleles or genes are different. Look, this is dominant and this is recessive. So when the genes that you are mixing looks like that, different, one dominant and the other recessive, you will call it heterozygote. When they look the same, they will be called homozygote. Between the homozygotes, they can be dominant homozygotes if both are dominant, and if both are recessive, will be recessive homozygote. Okay, well, I'm going to erase what is not necessary. This is not necessary, so I'm going to erase it. Good. Now we are going to introduce that information inside our Punnett square. The correct form to introduce it is like this. First, we can put a letter X here. It's not completely necessary, but you can add it. Then I'm going to take the dominant, the first one, and I'm going to place it here. Capital T, separated by the lines. Then I'm going to place the other genes that I'm going to mix right here in this side. Recessive T, recessive T. This one is tall and this one is short. So I want to find the percentage of sons and daughters, the percentage of offspring that are going to have the characteristics. So I'm going to start mixing them. Dominant and recessive, dominant, recessive. Dominant and recessive, dominant, recessive. Dominant and recessive, dominant, recessive. Dominant and recessive, dominant, recessive, and ready. You got that all of them are going to be dominant, recessive, heterozygotes. Now it's time to write the information. To write it, you are going to do a short exercise like this. First, you are going to write the fractions and the percentages. 1, 2, 3, 4. All of them are heterozygotes. Now I'm going to write the fraction and the percentages. Remember that they represent 100%. So I have to divide 100 in 4 parts. When you have 1 unit and you divide the unit in 4 parts, how do you call that? I'm going to make a drawing to represent it. Imagine that you have a pizza, but the pizza is divided in 4 parts. 1, another 1, another 1, and another 1. How many are they? They are 4. But I am representing the first one, this, only 1. When you want to represent that one, it's called 1/4. Okay? And then this one, of course, is 1/4. All of them are 1/4. Now, the percentage, we have to write that in percentage. 100 divided in 4 parts is like saying 100 between 4 equals, you already know that, you are good in math. 100 divided by 4 equals 25. So each one of them represents 25%, 25%, 25%, 25%. All right? Then you have to say the total. 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4 equals 4/4. It's okay. And 25% plus 25 plus 25 plus 25% equals 100. And done. You finish the mathematical part of this exercise. Now you have to make the interpretation of the data, of the information. The information says basically that all the offspring are going to be what? Are going to be T, T. That's what the information is saying. Look, all of them are heterozygotes. So all of them are going to be what? All these plants are going to be tall or short. Remember that the visible characteristic is this one. So in the interpretation of the information, you are going to say all of them are going to be T, heterozygote. It means that it's going to be tall. And that's the end of the exercise. This is the first exercise that I'm going to explain. Try to understand it and try to repeat the video, because then we are going to connect in a class and we are going to do some exercises like this. So I need that you have a prior knowledge of what are we going to speak about. So try to see the video, study it, and if you have questions, write the questions in your notebook, because I'm going to answer all your doubts in our virtual class, because we're going to have a connection through Google Meets in the next science class. It was a pleasure of sharing this video with you. God bless you, and I'll see you soon. Bye.